Hey yo, what it is, y'all? Let me get right into it. Share with you guys my Gemma wondering if ice character that I've been playing for the past like 2 days, roughly. I did play another character for the first day, but that was an SSF rush for just killing Traveler 7, so it's not really relevant. But this character, I did actually rush to kill Traveler 7, as well as playing it much beyond that point at this point in trade, and continue to keep playing it. But I figured I'm at a pretty happy place with it now, where the skeleton has really built itself out and it's just gear upgrades, and I feel like it's time to go ahead and show you guys how this character works. It's a pretty nice playstyle. As you can see, I'm just kind of splashing the screen everywhere. One quick recommendation for playing the skill is, of course, to turn down your skill effect brightness. Not necessarily you have to turn transparency on, because maybe you still want to see like the effect of Ring of Ice, whether it be base Ring of Ice or any of the MTX that you do have for it. But the actual visual of it is really bright, which makes it really hard to see things underneath it. So I recommend turning down the brightness so you can actually see as you are splashing it literally everywhere, right? And in this video, I'll cover the, build codes that are in the description, as well as like where my character currently is. It's not Traveler 8 done yet, but it's mostly just because I need more gear. Unfortunately, this is not the fastest scaling of characters out there, but that's also just because I've been kind of dragging my feet on buying some upgrades, playing a day behind on the market and everything, yada, yada, blah, 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 whatever. All that good stuff. I'll, give you guys more details on that when we get there, right? First, though, if you rock with the video, support the channel, all that good stuff. Trying to help, like, I guess, fill a little bit of a gap in here, because I know that Torchlight content, thanks to the Wrath with Max roll and XD that just occurred, is a little bit on the decline, but I want to still support the game in the ways that I can. And also, I know there's a new site coming around or something like that that's coming in for Torchlight that I could also be really hype. Support if you want to see more content about Torchlight. I just like talking about the game, so I plan on doing it anyways, right? Now, let's go ahead and actually get in game, because I don't think there's a lot for me to show you, at least I'm out of game, except for like just raw footage. So we're gonna go in game here. All right, so it's a really simple like character to take a look through. You actually see here even on screen. I just did a damage test recently, 2.6. It's pretty easy. You just hold right click. It does everything for you. At least in my current setup, it took a little bit to get to this point. And, the damage goes down when you're not standing directly on top of the target, but it's not by a whole lot. Like, you'll see if I just step apart away for a second and hold. Notice my damage is actually not that massively impacted by the fact that I'm not on top of the target, because a lot of the damage does not come from me myself. You'll see, like, it peaked at, like, 2.6, but it's still putting out good damage even when I'm not there, and it's just because the damage from me casting is relevant, but the spell burst damage is where most of the damage comes from. So, we need to start by talking about, like, literally the mechanic spell burst, and naturally, normally I would do this like while showing more footage, but I think it's easier if I just actually show some of the things like mechanically relevant to the character. So starting from here, this mechanic spell burst, if you're not fully aware, it just echoes your spells repeatedly and has the weird targeting thing on it. It's why when you look here, you see like the skill is a Nova skill that targets on myself, but spell burst allows the echoes to target on targets. This is what makes these types of skills really playable, like in the broad scheme of things, right? So that's one. Then we scale a little bit further by playing Gemma 1 in particular. This is not necessarily the best way to scale the character. It's just a really comfy one. Takes me back to my old days of playing Gemma 1 Thundercloud back when I was first new to the game. Really like this class. Love the trait. Where we just enter Rampage and doing a lot of extra damage, right? Like 20% additional cold and fire damage, 13% additional cold, 13% additional fire, 15% pen. And then this is the note that really pulls the whole build together. Ice to Blaze converts a large portion of our damage from cold to fire, but not all of it. This is very important. We want to still deal cold damage. We have a source of lightning damage as well that's relevant for something else later. But we start to dip on all of these sources, right? Because much like PoE 1, if you're familiar, right? Conversion allows you to use benefits from before and after. So the skill that is cold being converted to fire does 13% additional cold, and then another 13% additional fire from Ice Fire Embrace, right? And that's the theme here, going through is seeing how many of these layered effects we can get, which makes these gloves here Ice and Fire, which I did recently upgrade to a corroded version, an uncorroded version of Ice and Fire. Let me pull it up here for you. A non-corroded version of Ice and Fire just has a cold damage and fire damage, which also still works perfectly for this build, because we are, in fact, converting 99% of our cold to fire. It's worth noting, before you really have ice and fires, the other node tended to be like perform just a little bit, like it tip roughly equivalent, but this will feel a lot better once you do just get level 75, take the second trait there, and then put on ice and fire, and it really starts to shine. Very, very cheap item as well, which on that note, of course, by the way, in the description, you will see that I do have these various build codes from the state of my character, as well as it'll be on, it's when I'm streaming and playing, you can like come through and hit the command !Gemma1 and see what we're doing there, which you'll see. I've had ice and fires on for a long time on this character. They just added a lot of extra damage. Another quick shout out to, while I'm looking here, is brace boots for movement speed, born in fire for the percent damage as well as extra life while you're not low life. That's very comfy. And false gods is just always a good item, but I dropped that one. I wasn't planning on buying it, right? So other things that make this build work, right? Because otherwise this is just a lot of gear. You can tell that this is, you know, a pretty decent investment, or not even just decent investment, right? Like T1's on a lot of my gear at this point. Scaling crit, scaling spell burst, scaling levels, the usual things that make a spell work well. And then in the trees here, the other thing that needs to be talked about when we talk about spell burst builds is play safe. Spell burst is a timer that recharges all of your stacks over the course of that time period, right? So right now I have my spell burst scaling down to 0.46 seconds, which means every 0.46 seconds I generate all 4 stacks of my spell burst, right? Like watch, if I press it, you can see it's very quick how fast these stacks of spell burst come back. So then once they're all back, I press again, and usually on bosses you just hold down, but we're going to automate at some point to get out of holding down, and that's like a big upgrade that we're going to want to get. And so you scale speed, and the best way to scale speed of this, if you're really trying to get into the top end of it, is play safe, because it lets you scale cast speed alongside the spell burst charge speed. It does take a little bit of damage out of my non-spell burst damage, but again, the skill does all of it. We have so much damage in our spell burst that's what really matters, right? And that's a lot of the core mechanics, right? I also mentioned that the lightning damage is relevant because this gives us lightning damage. This gives us additional cold if we've done lightning damage recently, and additional fire if we've done cold damage recently. And we benefit from both of these lines in full because of the way our conversion works, right? That's taking advantage of as much of the hero trait as we possibly can. And you'll see here, like, the slates are pretty normal. All of this stuff can be like dug through in detail in the character sheet. I don't feel the need to actually talk too much about the details of a lot of this stuff. What I do want to take this last little segment here to talk about is, 1, how to start this character, and 2, how to end it, like where I'm headed with this character. So starting this character, I'll just use the link from when I killed Traveler 7 because it's a very reasonable gearing state. You'll see a lot of this gear is basic rares. It's worth noting you could literally run double Born in Fire, but I do have a note in this one in particular that the false gods is not necessary. It's really strong, but you could just have another deck here and actually craft over the ring and boots potentially by now. But because I didn't have to, I didn't, right? I just like rocked it out that way. It's worth noting, if you craft over the boots at this point in the game, you will most likely need to change insight to preparation, which you end up using preparation long term anyways, because of how good preparation feels with play safe, as it is additional spell burst charge speed, which is very, very critical to your damage. Now, otherwise, a lot of regular gear. Ice and Fire, very high priority to unique. You can farm your own Born in Fires actually from the treasure troves. These are such good for so good for early damage. Even now, they're still like surprisingly decent for me, but they're still just definitely worse than the crit stuff I have on now. And then early game weapon options, right? A Glacial Abyss arrow is a pretty good, cheap weapon. It's a bow, so it seems a little weird, but it gives you this line called Mind Blade, which Mind Blade gives you 30% additional spell damage when not using a wand or a staff. So this is actually meant for casters, basically, or like weird hybrid setups. But we use this early. I would recommend when using Glacial Abyss Arrow to not play with the 99% conversion node, instead play with the Coldest Fire node, so you can actually benefit from the pen. So you get pen, you get frostbite chance, which is comfy, you get additional damage against frostbitten enemies, and then you get Mind Blade, which is a lot of damage. Like, this does so much for your damage early. Alternative option, but it's a little expensive at times, is Oversight. This also just gives you a lot of damage. You can see this is a lot more expensive, right? I realized I forgot to show you the price on Glacial Abyss Arrow. About 1 fee, right? So both options are perfectly viable here. pick your poison, take it both, will get you to Traveler 7. Like I killed with that Glacial Abyss arrow in my hand still. Even with the conversion node clicked, if I remember correctly. We could just check very quickly. I feel like I was already converting and it was bombastic and beautiful. Where is yeah, already converting at this point, and it was still absolutely worth it. As far as stats to prioritize at all times, you'll see pretty common thread. Int, crit damage are good on all of the like irregular slots, right? And then when you are looking at weapons, so let's just say like looking at my character from last night, you want flat crit is really strong. It allows you to not run Flame Magus and still have a lot of crit chance. And then, you know, cast speed, percent damage, flat damage, int. At least for stuff that is before ultimate modifiers. I'll talk more about ultimate modifiers here in a moment. And then you just, you know, roll that up. It's worth noting that at my level of int, flat damage and int are pretty equivalent on rings, but it's because of the false gods. I believe without false gods, int would gap flat damage. But I like, since I have a false gods, and these are pretty reasonable to have by now, like at this point in progression, this neck is a lot more reasonable than when I originally got it. And then just crafting gear around that. Because somebody's going to ask, by the way, my pets on my current version are really good because I did just pull Dreamweaver last night, actually, with the bonus pulls that they gave us. Do not fret about pets too much. They help a lot, but I promise you the character still works regardless. There are no levels on anything here because I'm not swiping for pets. That's actually stupid. And as far as what pets you can use in place, just use good spell pets, like leveled spell pets that are, you know, purple and blue. It'll get a lot of the job done. But I definitely do like, yeah, I do like the pets I got there. Then talk about where we're headed, right? Where we're headed. One, my slates have a little bit of work to do, right? I have some of these nodes down here, just like the sub nodes are not good. Like these two, those are not good. This one here needs to be upgraded to purple potentially, but it's already so good that I'm a little scared to touch it. This one here needs to have its nodes redone or even replaced because this one is only one positive, but getting extra positive with +1 spell burst is pretty hard. Which +1 spell burst is a very, very high priority slate mod, by the way. But you'll be able to, like, you can pretty much copy what you're looking for in my slates. You know, not exactly the combinations, but more so the stats. I slated to get +1 more focus blessing stack, but I couldn't find a good one to buy. That's on the list. Candle wise, you can buy pretty much whatever. I went for Rampage Candle and additional cold damage candle. But again, you can do pretty much whatever you want in that regard. The next major upgrades for me are finishing out my T1ing of gear. I might look at buying a priceless base so that I can start looking at ultimate crafting because it gives you more plus levels in the prefix or pen, or you get stuff like double damage. Additional damage for spell burst is the most important stat in here. We will be replacing something in our spell faces with this 100% of the time here. Additionally, on priceless next, there is Beacon, which does allow us to consider switching this to Chili, which has some implications for like generating other charges as well. But it's an option. I haven't decided if I'm going to go that route yet or not, because I could just use it to go +1 spell burst instead. You can also go with like Winter here. Upgrading pedigree is going to be pretty big. It's just going to be, you know, really ramping up the character, which if you want to see the character when it gets ramped up, I recommend being on stream. I do not know if I'm going to actually like if I think I've made enough substantial updates and people are asking for it, I might make another video about the character. But otherwise, I'm also just going to be updating and playing it on stream and chilling around and whatnot, and have it be that way. But if you have questions in the comments, you can ask them to me, and I'll like post updates there if you want them in the comments, or if you come to my Discord or my stream, I'll let you know. Right? Anyways, thank you guys for watching. I think that's everything for me in this video. And I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.